that was a trigger. Oh, hello. That's the vibe we're going
I
with
love
today.
it.
Welcome to Classroom Crush. This is the first friends and family bonus episode that will be put out for free because obviously I can't keep this from you. That's the thing. And so you gotta subscribe to the Patreon so I don't have to keep anything from you. Lovely people. Um, this is the first of these episodes. I'm really excited. Um, the most eventful things I need to update you on is, yesterday I captured our two mice. I haven't told you about this, but we had two little mice. And of course, I named one Henry and I named one Billy because that was the essence that they were giving. And they were bold. And I said, baby, to my boyfriend. Yes. I said, baby, I can't kill them. These guys got spunk. They got personality. They are daring because they will come on out while I'm cooking. They don't give a shit. But we did capture them. It happened. And I released them. And it was a mission. And, people were saying, you got to kill it. I said, I'm not going to do it to Billy and Henry. They are brothers and they deserve a second chance. So out into the world they went. Also, after we left your house, my guest, who I'm about to introduce, me and my friend that was at my guest house, we came back home, absolutely attacked by the largest cockroach flying within the air that I've seen in a New York apartment thus far. It was on the wall, and then it was high speed. I swear, we're sitting in the couch. It is coming at us like it had a mission. We were screaming at the top of our lungs. Like if the neighbors probably thought like something truly traumatic was and again, they would be right because it was very traumatic. We screamed so much. My boyfriend got home right in time. I said, kill it. I can't. I was literally hiding in the bathroom and our friend was also hiding behind a door. It was crazy. That has nothing to do with anything, but I just want you to sort of understand where I've been in my energy in the last 24 hours, and that's on alert, but now at ease, and more so because I am with my amazing guest. Where to start with this guest? I met them in the summer of 2020, as you know, has happened with a lot of people, changing lots of lives, impacting lots of souls. I met them in the summer of 2020. Never forget it. They are an artist. They are a Black trans liberationist. They are an abolitionist. They are a creator. They are a producer. They are, genuinely one of the first people to teach me about what it is to like be an abolitionist in day-to-day life and like truly actually practice radical love. It's pretty wild when you see it with your eyes and then it can be done. And for that reason, I am forever grateful to have them. And their name is Osh. Hi, it's Osh. Welcome to Classroom Crush.
Hey, Rebecca.
Is that okay?
I love it. That was perfect. That was perfect.
It's all true.
Yeah.
That sounds so like, almost even heavy, but it is just true. Like laughing with you, getting to know you, seeing you, being in community with you. What a treat for me.
Yeah.
What a treat for me.
I mean,
and
especially during that time, right? Like,
it was,
happening.
I feel like there was a lot of energy because there was a lot of energy and a lot of stress and motion. And I felt like whenever I had like a little one-on-one with you or ended up in your space, calming, ease, joy, laughter. So that's hard and rare and we have to hold on to it.
Yeah. Yes.
And for many, many reasons, I want to know how you became this person. So we're going to talk about it through boys.
Yes, we love boys. Well, we love men.
Well, do we?
We love men, but boys are a good pastime.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that. Yes, well, like you said, my name is Osh. I do a bunch of shit and I'm just here. I'm a human. I'm a Black trans being. And yes, abolitionist, Black trans liberationist, Black liberationist, but also like a student of all of those things continually. So yeah, I mean, shoot, where do I begin?
Well, where we're gonna begin, we're on, and if for some reason you've never listened to this podcast before, this is a podcast that is about childhood crushes, about childhood love and feelings, and how they inform who you become later, and how you love and do all of that stuff. So, we talked a little bit before. You were a crushy person to begin with, yes? Yes. Okay. How early are these feelings happening?
Oh, I mean, I had crushes in like what is it? Like Head Start. I was in like Head Start programs.
Mm.
I had crushes then. I had crushes in kindergarten. I was a frisky kindergartner. When middle school happened and started to become a thing, crushes became a lot more prevalent and present. And then high school is high school.
High school is all of the juice bubbling.
And then but like literally, I remember being young and like crushing on obviously celebrities, but also just like people in the neighborhood or people in my class that I thought were cute. Like I've always been a person who like paid attention to people's features. Like when I'm talking to a person, especially in person, I'm looking at people's eyes, but I'm also like looking at your nose and your lips and your teeth and like your eyelashes, your eyebrows. Like I'm looking at all the fine detail of the person, like and really sketching or imprinting the person's face in my brain.
That's totally a thing. Like I realized when I was in arts high school, yes, and like doing figure drawing classes, I realized like if I spend enough time just like looking at someone's face, like sketching their face, I feel like I could fall in love with any face. Like when you look at every feature, it's like that's so interesting and beautiful and weird, even if it's like truly a normal whatever a normal face looks like.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so I was just captivated by people, that may speak to like artistry as well, right? Like in being an artist or someone who creates, like looking at the details and like fine details of everything. And so yeah, I remember being like in Head Start programs and being like, oh, like, early on, AMAB being assigned male at birth, children are like taught, especially Black AMAB children are taught like to be sort of like conquerors, like everything is a conquest, like especially girls, you know what I'm saying? So it was, I was always asking from a young age, like, oh, you got a little girlfriend somewhere or whatever. And I always feel so weird about it. I'm like,
yeah.
I was like, no, because
did it feel like pressure?
It felt like pressure, but at the same time, I was like, what if I have a boyfriend? Like in my brain, but I'm like, oh, I can't say that out loud. Obviously, that's not the right thing.
How young do you think you were when you knew that like that was what the answer would be, or like,
young?
Is that a question? Young.
But like, I identify as pansexual. So like, again, every human being is like, scrumptious to me,
Yeah.
And I think like it being taboo to say things about boys, it made me like hold the crushes in, obviously, but I would sneak at that point and like do things, And I remember my whole life, my mom would be like, you've never brought anybody home to meet me. And I'm like, I'll bring the person home that I'm going to marry. Right. And I just always use that as like a cop out because I'm like, because what if I want to bring a boy home? You wouldn't like that. Or like someone who's trans home, like you wouldn't like that. Like you wouldn't like anything that is not a cis, hetero, whatever.
Right. Like that was a given from the start.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I think one of the first crushes I really had, which ended up, and most of my crushes turned into, like when I pursued them, turned into the thing. So one of my first ones, I remember being in
Beautiful Person's Curse. I'm just like, I'm like thinking about this show. I'm like, the people who that happens to, I'm like, oh yeah, beautiful people. Makes a difference. No, everyone I've had on the show has been beautiful, obviously, but there are some people who are particularly blessed. Let's just say that.
Everyone
Um,
isn't able, but I'm so blessed that I
yeah.
am.
Yes.
But
So yes, go on.
um, I think I know I was in middle school or like coming out of like elementary into middle school. I think maybe like going into fifth grade possibly at the
Mhm.
summer program. And there was this girl, her name is Jaden. And I liked her one because she was pretty, but also like her name was Jaden. So it felt like,
Mm,
a
of
twofer.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
You're like, I'm sort of getting away with something. I don't really know
no,
what yet,
you
but
know. And I remember like dating her and it was great. Like we would just date over the summer really because we were at summer camp together, but like we would talk all through the school year or whatever. One summer I
Mhm.
decided not to go to the camp and then I couldn't get back in the camp. And my friend, who was my really good friend at the camp, ended up dating this girl and it broke my heart. Like
How did you find out about this? Just through the
crazy enough,
grapevine? No.
someone texted me who was at the camp, and was like, oh, like, where were you this summer? Da da da, everything. And then they were like, Austin, like, and Jaden started to date. And I was like,
Excuse
what?
me?
I'm like, I decided to not come to camp one summer,
One
and this is
summer.
what happens. Like, and
Mhm.
so like my idea of like loyalty was just like shot.
Yeah, so how was that feeling immediately like when you received
I
that
was
message?
so pissed off. I wanted to go to the camp. No, I think I like text Austin or like called him and was just like going off on him and was just like, like I'm
Mm.
gonna fight you type thing. And it was just like, oh, that's so cute.
Do you feel like you were more mad at Austin than Jaden? Or equally like
I was equally mad at both of them. Yeah, I didn't feel
mm,
like I feel like, yeah, because I mean, one was my girlfriend, the other was like a best friend. So it's like
yeah.
at this point, y'all are like somewhere on the same level
Hmm.
as far as like how I interact with you all. Or like my respect level or care level for you all.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, why would you do that to me? I just don't
Hmm.
understand. It
Yeah.
really made me so sad.
Yeah. That's awful. That's a terrible and I mean that's like there's just so many little moments that can turn into like things that end up being like huge fears, like huge weight of fear. Because like when I hear that, I'm just like, well, now I can never not go to camp because what's gonna happen if I don't go to camp with all the people that are still at camp?
Yeah.
You know?
And for me,
Yeah.
I definitely understand. For me, it turns into like, oh, now I'm just like gonna dismiss these people. I'm never gonna talk to them again. Like I've
Mm.
always had this complex, I think, of like I'm the best thing that's ever happened to people.
I
Um,
mean, not wrong,
and so,
but
and so it's like,
yeah.
oh, you disrespected me or you treated me wrong, you treated me bad. Like there's no coming back from that. You
Hmm.
know, you're done in this town, like that kind of person.
Yeah. So
And I mean, I just never
where,
went back to the
yeah.
camp and I never talked to any of them again. Like I just
Do you think that like that idea of like I'm the best thing that's happened to you, do you think that grew over time or you've always been like that? Like you were like that then or as like a result
I
of
think because I've always been so nice, right? I've always been so nice, loving, and caring. I've always been about community. I've always put
Mhm.
like people before me. That's kind of like the cadence of how I was raised. And
Mhm.
so when I extend myself to people and that happens, um, it does turn into like this almost God complex, I think you could say. And I
Mhm.
definitely think that it has grown as my life has
Over
like
time.
progressed because
Yeah.
again like I go into everything with this like no, I'm going to give everybody a chance, like it's going to be
Mhm.
people I'm going to give people the opportunity to prove me wrong about people, like
Yeah.
yes, like I give trust and love and respect almost away freely, 'cause I'm
Mhm.
like what's the best that can happen? Like I make lifelong friends or
Right.
like but then also like, what's the worst that can happen? Somebody like disrespects you, but it's like a person only disrespects you insofar as you allow them to. So
Right.
I'm
Well, and
like,
it's also just like interesting about like perspective, right? Where it's like I can know how much I'm giving and like how much that it like where that is coming from and like what that feels like to give. And then when like the information I'm getting from you is like an L, when it's like something, even if it's something small or big or whatever, it's like you don't see how that feels in that imbalance
exactly,
like maybe the way that I do.
exactly.
It's hard because it's I feel like when we get into talk like that, it's easy for people to start talking about it in a way that like seems transactional, where it's like, here's what I do for you and what are you doing for me.
Right. Yes.
And that's something that like I really try to pay attention to, because I feel very similarly in my life. I have like pretty consistently been like a giver,
Mhm.
and but it's like I love to give. I I
Right.
I the same. It's in the same way of like I love to give a compliment that feels nice, both for you and for me, hopefully. Um, but it's the moments of like, oh, how do I feel like I need to be considered? And like, am I giving you a shot at even giving that to me? Like, am I being clear about what that is? And B, like, am I being honest with myself about what that is?
Right.
Like, it's twisty.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Like, really wanting to be able to just like bloop into somebody else's brain and be like, oh, I see how you see
All the
this.
time, right?
Yeah.
All the time. So because you can't do that, yeah, I tend to like if I get hurt by persons, I'll just remove myself. Well, I used to do that. Now I'm more of a person who's like, okay, let's have communication and like try to figure this thing out if possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then if not, like if like you said, what I'm giving is not being returned, I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna back away from it because I feel like I've given it my all or like tried to,
Right.
and there's no
And I also feel like that's like math you kind of have to do on your own. Like that
yeah,
can't be a thing that's a universal, where it's like I know what I can take basically.
yeah,
And like
absolutely.
it's hard to decide when something is like, well, this is I've given all of this work and it's not moving and I don't know how much more I can try on it, and then like peace out.
Yeah,
Like that line is different for
yeah,
everyone in every relationship too,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you feel like you so after like this early disappointment, um are you feeling like I am still the greatest and I'm gonna find something new? Are you like searching for something new?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
rarely got like to the point of feeling like, oh, love will never happen for me again, da, 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 like that kind of thing. It was always
Mm-hmm.
like, miss one, next 15
On
won't
to the
coming.
next.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
find, look at me, it was always
Yeah.
that. And so I can't say that I've had many relationships in my life because I was repressed,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, a lot when I was a kid. Like there was no space to like date other things outside
And
of
where
the
did you
world.
grow up again?
I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
So the middle of the map. Not
Yeah.
cornfields or anything, like definitely city vibes, but
Yeah.
very conservative still.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no space for that existence of like, oh yeah, you can have like a partner that's the same sex or like that might be trans or some sort of queer.
Mm-hmm.
There was no space for queerness. And so I had like four girlfriends in my entire life. All of them were great.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more. I don't know. I was a serial dater like in school.
Yeah. You're social butterfly.
And then but I remember like my front facing self was like, okay, cool, like this like pseudo ladies man vibe because I not only was I like handsome or like
Mm-hmm.
beautiful or like attractive, but like I was clean, clean cut. Like my hair was always cut. My, everything was always together. And so it was like, and I was smart, or I am smart, so it's like the total package. Everyone's moms loved me. I'm talking about everybody's mom, it was like, oh my God, like that's the best kid in the whole world. Like they're so respectful and like they're so handsome. And, like people's parents were like talking to my mom, like trying to arrange
such a special child,
trying to arrange marriages kind of thing. Like it was like ridiculous.
Yeah. Like we found the one.
Yeah.
Let's grab them and go.
Oh my God, that's so crazy. Like there was this one girl, her name was Miranda. We went from elementary school to high school together. We broke off in middle school, but our whole entire life, especially when we were in elementary school, her mom and my mom were always like, yeah, they're going to get married when they get older. We're going to make sure that happens. And it's just like,
yeah.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
I'm a child as well. I'm so little.
Yeah.
Look at how close I am to the ground.
Exactly. And so things like that. But so girls were front facing, but like I was having some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would hang out with people and see people.
Well, before I did want to ask, do you think like that like mothers love them thing, was that like an effort or was that like a natural thing that just happened?
So natural. I'm just a charismatic person. Like I'm magnetic. And
were you like cognizant of the way that people viewed you that way, and how did it make you feel?
Yeah, I was very cognizant of it. I lived a life now, especially like doing a lot of inner child and inner teen healing work. I realized like I just never wanted to embarrass my mother. Well, I won't say that's like the whole entirety of it. I've always been a character. I've always wanted to be like, on TV, well known, like kind of like energy. I walk into a room, it lights up because I'm just like, hey, like, what's up? What's going on? You know how I am.
I know how you are.
So,
Did you hear my introduction?
So it was that, and, not really having the space to express that on top of, okay. So when I couldn't express that, it turned into, okay, well, I don't want to embarrass my mom. So I'm going to keep this personality up because this is me, but I'm going to curtail it or like curate it in a way that's just like focus on your education, be learned, like choose to do good things, like be the upstanding example of like what a Black AMAB child is supposed to be.
Right. And did you feel like, do you feel like you got direct validation from your mom, like, for being that way?
No, I've spent like the last 25 years trying to be validated. And I finally like have like released it, and it's just like that feels really good because I would do absolutely anything to get some sort of praise from my mother. And it rarely came, and when it did come, it was very like, I mean, yeah, like this is like expectation. Like I'm proud of you, but like, what else? You've been smart your whole life. You want me to keep clapping because you're smart? It's like, really yes, because you never clap.
Yeah, please. Louder. I need to hear it. It's really hard. I feel like the last just really like end of 2021 into this year, I've been really trying to like do my shit in my little brain. And it's really hard I think it's really hard to be honest with yourself about expectation and how expectation has influenced you. Because, I think I've always had a real narrative about why I am the way I am and where certain things come from. And like a lot of that is very true, and a lot of that I don't doubt. But a big sort of breakthrough for me recently has been realizing like, oh yeah, I think I've had a lot of expectation on me since I was little. Sort of like, and like you can point to obvious like suspects, but also kind of just like generally. And it's this and it's like weird to talk about, but it's this thing when you're like a special kid where like people see something in you and they like feel that you are meant for like such great things, and you grow up with that and you're like, well, it has to be true and it has to come true.
Right.
And then it's like, well, fuck, it has to come true, because then if not, all of these years and all of these people like
I've let them down.
Exactly. But then it's sort of like, it's like the goalpost keeps moving,
Exactly.
because to get there, it's really hard. And if you're not, and even, I'm 26 and I'm really trying to understand that is young, and like, I know that is young, but I had expectations where I was like 22 Oscar, I was like gonna be there. And I think every moment that I'm not there feels like, oh no, I'm failing. And it's like, how do you get over that? That's like hard. We
all have, like, I remember being 14, 15 and saying like, oh no, like when I'm 21, I'm going to find my partner. And when I'm 25, we're going to get married. Then we're going to spend 5 years traveling together. And then at 30, we're going to have our first child and buy our first house and have our first car. And I'm going to be ethnobotanist. And I'm going to be, I'm going to focus on like medicinal medicine, medicine, like, and it's just like, what? Who said that?
It's crazy. Like, it's like you just like, you want to go back and be like, nothing.
Yeah.
Dream your dreams.
The thing about it
be passionate, but you know nothing about how the world's going to go.
Exactly. And so my whole life, quite literally, I remember like being young, like me and my older sibling, we were characters. So like, this is also the beautiful thing about how I grew up. Like I have an older sibling. We were a year and a half apart. So the two of us like were thick as thieves, like growing up. And we both wanted to be actors, and we would go out to auditions and castings, and people would be like, you two are amazing. You two are so great. You two, really should be on TV. And our mom, but like all of these things, like you had to pay them to send you somewhere to do the thing. And it was, full like scale event. And so our mom would always be like, if a person is supposed to, or if you're supposed to do this thing, like it'll just happen. And so we spent our whole life like as kids, like,
when's it gonna happen?
It'll happen. It's gonna happen. Let's just keep doing. Like we don't have to do anything. It's just gonna happen. But then
if it's meant to be,
exactly. But then you go to church, and then it's like, well, faith without work is dead. And it's like, okay, so let's start working on something. So it's like, well, mom, we want to do this, and this, and there was never any time for it. Or like even for me, it was like, well, I have to focus on your older sibling. They have this, and going on. So I never really got to hone my skills or my craft. Like I had to like just figure things out by myself. And it became hard after a while. I'm like, I know that I'm talented. I have this like raw talent that needs to really be, shaped.
Shared.
And I don't have any space to give it to. Okay, now, so then I must not, it's never going to happen. I must not, this must not have been the path for me. I may have just been dreaming because I watched TV all day. Cool. Let me be realistic now about my goals. Let me either be a doctor or a business person or a lawyer or something that's realistic, or a teacher or an educator or something like that. And you lose that. You know what I'm saying? You lose that spark, you lose that happiness, and then you become a shell of yourself. And now you're just going through the motions. And and
that's just like that's just a really like easy sort of example of also just like where privilege like plays, especially in like these industries. Is like so much of it is like, if you have the time and the space to be like practicing this thing, and we could say, everyone can make the time in this, like sure, but also no, because there are certain things I have to do to simply survive,
right?
And like I feel like I'm in very much survival mode right now, because I'm also very much trying to prioritize doing the shit, like bringing the podcast back, blah blah, like I'm trying to force myself to do that, and I quit it's terrifying. I don't know where my rent's going to come from, and that is, it's a lot harder to also create when you are under that stress.
Absolutely.
It's not like the best that I'm going to be producing when I'm just like literally today, I'm just like, lunch.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? It's like 5:00, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I think that is, it's not to like romanticize like that pain. But there is like someone I was listening to a podcast. I think it was like Betty who was on Las Culturistas or something. And she said something about how, you know, your hardships now are going to make you uniquely prepared for like the hardships you're going to face when you're making it, you know, and like when you're like there and when it's happening, because it's like, well, fucking I've been through da 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 and this is cake and I can handle whatever.
Yeah, and I think that there's obviously space for that, right? I think, but still, like, why it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have, well, and then that's the thing. It's like, well, but it's not like that for all of these other people.
Yeah, it's like,
and that's where it's like,
it doesn't have to be any of that. It can literally we could just all enjoy this experience, and then like when it's our time to
imagine a world of abundance, you know,
imagine, and we can just all go on about our day, and then like when it's our time to leave, and we leave behind what it is that we want the next people to have, and like everybody just lives in such great peace and harmony, and it's just so perfect. And
we just have to do a lot of abolishing, and then
but even still, we all know that even with abolition, it's not going to be
it's work
anyway.
So it's work. But what's not work is love. But also that's not true, because sometimes love is work.
Love is hard work.
Love is hard work. Do you feel like in these little early relationships, are you taking them seriously, like relationships? You know, like, this is my girlfriend.
I was taking them serious title-wise, but at the same time, I wasn't. Like, I was not a person who wanted to necessarily be committed. I wanted to keep my options open and often. And so I would be like, yeah, like, I've like been into polyamory for a while. I wouldn't call myself polyamorous, but I think the idea of like having multiple partners has always been fascinating to me. I just wouldn't want my partners to have other partners.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, well, are you really polyamorous, or are you just a whore? You know,
there's space for both.
And I'm like, there's room. Two things can exist at the same time,
right?
You know? So yeah, I was taking.
I mean, it makes sense if you were also just like in the beginning, in the way that you are getting to, I'm assuming, like start to explore this side of your sexuality. You are juggling a couple things at once,
right.
to figure that out.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly. And for me, like, I think even before my idea of like queerness and relationships, and you know what it looks like to have a partner and so on, became more nuanced. Like, I was like, I can have a girlfriend and a boyfriend. Like, they're not the same gender, not the same sex. Like, it's
not, they're two different sex. They don't cross.
So I'm not cheating.
How did you define those? Did you define them specifically? Like, well, a girlfriend is this and a boyfriend is this.
It was defined by genitalia.
Yeah.
That was it.
There's
at that
this lane and this
like,
lane.
This one has this thing, this one has this thing. It's not the same thing.
And they don't have to know.
But that was the thing. I was like, I wouldn't mind telling, but they don't have to know.
Okay. Yeah. So you didn't feel like any sort of like shame around like that?
No.
Not saying that you should have, but
no, I felt shameful in the fact that I couldn't be out loud with my queerness, but like, as far as like, whether it was a girl, guy, whoever, no one was coming home to meet my family unless I knew for sure that we were going to walk down the aisle. And I still have that same mindset. My family, like my siblings, like have never met anybody that I've ever dated.
Yeah.
That might be hyperbolic, but it sounds true. But I have shown them pictures, right? I've been like, oh, this is, you know, but like, as far as like being on the phone and like, you know, picking me up from the house or going on a date, like it was never that.
Do you think that that's also like an expectation thing? I'm like, this is who I'm bringing to my family. What do they expect?
I have extremely high standards.
Yeah.
My family, I'm sure that they would love a paper bag if I brought it home. But I am
Go to the grocery store.
but
You're just
I am
kidding.
like, no, this person has to be, I literally have to want to spend the rest of my life with this person because I've told my family about people and been like, oh, I'm so in love with him. And then
Mhm.
like a week later, I'm like, oh, they'll ask. And I'm like, oh, like, what? That was
Yeah.
just like a quick little.
Okay, so this is where we're gonna get into. So in middle school, you're sort of, or in high school, where are we, like, where you're starting to you had most, when did you have like the girlfriends? Those were mostly middle school, high school?
Well, no. So
No.
I had my last girlfriend in undergrad.
Okay, yeah. Um when are you
I lied.
identifying within
I just had a girlfriend last summer, but
what is time? Where are we even in it? It's fake.
yeah.
So when are you really like knowing in yourself or feeling comfortable in your queerness? Later?
That wouldn't be until 18 and I was in
Okay.
undergrad. Well, actually, no, that wouldn't be until 23, quite literally. But that
Yeah.
did not stop me from like I started sleeping with guys when I was okay. I started having sex at 12. Please don't judge me. It
Wait, this is not a space for that.
it just happened. No.
Mm, I mean, as is common, honestly, like it's a thing, and
Looking back, I'm
specifically
like,
in queer like histories. I think on this show, people I know, like, that is a thing, and
I think it's
there can be a million different reasons for
I
it.
think it's
You
so
know.
ridiculous, but it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the age of 12 till about 22, I had this ongoing situation with this guy in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And we would be bros in the daytime. And then, in the nighttime, he would call me to come over. I would call him to come over. And, we would have our fun. And
Yeah.
then, so that was a thing. And then he
How was that relationship feeling to you?
you know, looking back,
I mean, we can get into as much as you want and as little as you want.
just looking back on it, very toxic. As I
Mm-hmm.
became more and more openly queer, he became less and less like wanting to hang out per se, but it would always be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, but you can come and like,
Right.
you
It,
know,
in many ways, a classic story.
exactly the classic, like,
Yeah.
oh, bro, like I'm not with that gay shit.
Right. Right.
But very much like
Like, wait, I liked you when you were straight. Like, no.
exactly. And so like to this day, like he's still cis, he's still straight, he has like kids, the whole
Mm,
thing.
yeah.
But we like literally stopped when we were 22.
Mm.
He had his first kid already by that time, but
Was uh was this a thing that was hard to stop
it
for
was,
you?
and I think only because it was the first like
Mm-hmm.
really consistent thing. And like even when I went away to college, like I would come home on breaks and like it's right
Yeah.
across the street. You know what I'm saying?
You sort of start to define yourself by it a little bit, do you
Yeah. It
think?
was like every time
Yeah.
I come home, I have to do this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of them.
Yeah, it becomes part of your routine.
Yeah.
What do you think you feel without it?
I feel a lot less of a secret. And I think after a while, so that confident kid who was like, look at me, like I'm so great, anybody be it just went away. Like when I started to
Mm-hmm.
get older and like when puberty happened and like boys were starting to get like buffer and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And like my frame stayed exactly the same. Like almost nothing happened to me.
Yeah.
And like years would continue to go by. I was in high school and I still looked like I was a freaking eighth grader. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
size
You're just
wise. And I'm like
little.
just little, just think,
Yeah.
and I wasn't, people, still thought I was attractive and cute or whatever, but like no one, I think like there, again, like not having a space to express queerness, I just didn't know what to do. And so I just like existed. I was just like off on
Yeah.
education. I won't shake the table too much. I'll just like go to
Hmm.
school. And like when I'm 18 and I go to college, I can finally live my life.
Right. It's the when over. Do
Exactly.
you feel like it was like, well, if I let myself slip even a little bit and be it'll all come out
It'll
and
all
I
come
won't.
out.
Yeah.
It would have all come out.
Yeah. And that's a lot of and that's the energy that you have when you're a kid and
Exactly.
you don't realize that you're not supposed to.
Exactly. Especially like when people
Right.
are correcting your behavior like throughout your life. So if I will walk and I'll like or walk with like, woo, like my back hurts or something that looked overtly feminine, it would always be like,
Hmm.
don't do that. Boys don't do that. Or don't cross your legs like that. Boys don't do that. Don't do this. Boys don't do that.
Hmm.
And so I'm just like, okay,
Do you feel
you
like
know,
you knew that that was wrong though, and it was just like just when I get out of here,
yeah,
like that? Yeah. Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You
My
were
whole
like,
life, I was just like, my whole family, I love them so much.
mhm,
But like I am the most traveled, I'm the most educated. I'm like
mhm,
the top of the food
right,
chain when it comes to my family.
right.
And like even like living in New York, or like traveling as many places I've been, like all the things that I've done in my 25 years, like for
Mhm.
them is like, oh, you're so Hollywood and whatever else. And for me, it's just like, no, I just
This
know
is
that
who
there's
I've
so much
always
more.
been.
I'm like, but I just know there's so much more to life than this state, this city,
Mhm.
to seeing y'all all day. Like, girl, I want to see who else is out here.
What do you think made you that way? Like, do you think that curiosity and that like that's always been with you? Was it something that you like saw in other people, or
I
what
can
made you feel
attribute
like,
it,
okay, well, I'm gonna tackle life because life is big and I'm gonna,
yeah. I mean, I can attribute it to my aunt. I have an aunt who there's me and then there's her.
Yeah.
And so she, when I was a kid, like she would always take me and my older sibling to the library and we would read and read and read. And, she
Mm,
would take us like on trips out of town. My mom would be there too. Like that's not nothing to discredit my mother, but my aunt was more of a person who was like encouraging the idea that there's so much more to the world than just
mhm.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time with her. And one of my favorite movies growing up was The Wizard of Oz. And
Yeah.
I would literally, anytime I would go to her house, that was the first thing that I would always watch. And to see how Dorothy like goes from Kansas, which is where
Mhm.
my aunt lived in
Literally.
Kansas, like quite literally lived in Kansas, to see her go to this like magical land far away and it's so beautiful and it's like all these people. I'm like, yes, like that's the
Yeah.
world. And
I
and
mean,
then I got into, so from the Wizard of Oz, I ended up like being introduced to the Wiz, which is like, the more
yeah. I
cultured
mean, there's
version
just
of
like
it.
so many reasons that like that would hit for you,
Exactly. And
like not
so
just it being a queer sort of like historical text
I'm
in a way,
in New
but also
York,
you're like literally in Kansas.
you know,
Yeah.
and so, it just began to become more real for me that like the world had so much more to offer. And I was watching Disney Channel all the time and Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and
Hmm.
even like Discovery Channel, PBS Kids, like everything.
Yeah.
I just knew, I was like, none of this, like in these little scenes, I've never seen this before. So where is this at?
Mm.
Ooh, that's New York. Ooh, okay, that's Paris. Ooh, okay, that's England. Oh, okay, I want to go. What are
Yeah.
these? Like, I want to go to these places.
Yeah.
And so I've just always just hungered for that. I've never wanted to just settle in one place and exist
Yeah.
there for the rest of my life. Like that was
Do you
always a
think you
crazy
seek
concept to me.
people in that same way too? Like exciting people? Like who are you gravitating towards when you're growing up?
Mhm.
Um, in these little romantic and slash sexual slash whatever situations.
Yeah, I began to so in middle school I was introduced to Logo TV, which is where this show called Noah's Ark came on, and
Okay.
RuPaul's Drag Race. And
Yeah.
I was always watching RuPaul's Drag Race and Noah's Ark, but Noah's Ark was so important because it was this show about um, four or five like black queer men who like were best friends in California. And
Mm,
one of them, the main character's name is Noah. He's like the femme one of the group and like has all this
mm,
hair and it's just like, but he still like has the muscular body. And so it's just like this almost androgynous like energy. And I
mm,
remember just watching the show and being like, okay, I feel mostly connected to Noah, like with this like
hmm.
feminine energy. Also, like RuPaul's Drag Race was so great. I love seeing the transformations from like, you know, to drag, but I knew that I wasn't like a drag queen person. It was just like,
Hmm.
yeah, it was like I'm femme, but I'm
Mm.
not like
Even
I'm not a
just seeing
drag queen. Like,
anything gender different in gender norm than you've seen in any other sort of media is
yeah,
like
it was
huge.
just like okay, cool. But I started to gravitate toward men, like real, like I loved football players in
Mm,
high school. Like I just loved the sports players in general. If it was football and
mm.
track, those were my preferred. But there was like this wrestler at my high school who was super hot, and I remember being in high school and like shooting my shot because I had been
Mm.
dealing with this guy across the street from me from forever, and I'm just
Yeah.
oh like um like what are you in like I'm into like da 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 like I'm
Mm.
I'm just trying to like give you
You
some
put
head,
something out
like that kind
there.
of thing. Like I literally would just be like, like I just want to see your dick.
What would the reactions be?
Okay, so because I was really smart, I was a student ambassador, I was president of like SGA and all this other stuff.
Hmm.
Everybody would just be like, maybe like, bro, like, no. And then I would get like I would feel so ashamed that I like came out and asked them this thing, and like I'd be so
Yeah.
embarrassed, and I'd be like, okay, I'll be like, my bad, like, just don't even mind it, like, act like it never happened, like, that kind of thing, like,
That's
don't,
so interesting.
yeah, it was like, don't ruin my reputation, based off
Mm.
this thing, like, and they'd be like, oh
But
no,
you
like it,
felt interested enough that you like, I'm like, what happens in the space between you're not asking and you are asking? Like that decision. Do you think it just like
it
had to
just,
come out?
it just jumps out. I prom like there would be time I would be so nervous, like
Mm.
I would just be we could just I would be randomly in the bathroom, right? Or like the restroom at my school. And like if one of the guys I found attractive walked in, I would get instantly nervous because
Mm.
they would always, oh, like I was everybody's friend. I've always been everybody's friend, like whatever. So it was always like, oh, like what's up, bro? Da, da, da. Like they would want to talk, and I'm
Mm.
like, oh my god, I'm in the bathroom with them, like,
Yeah.
and they're hot to me, and I was like, ooh,
And this is stressful
I'm
to
like,
me. They don't get
oh, I'm
it.
like, because they
Yeah.
want to talk. And I'm like, so that like makes me want to stay longer. And it's like, but you want to talk? Like, do you want to talk or do you want to talk? Because we could talk also, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And like they just be sitting there
I've been known to
talking.
talk.
Yeah. And so they just be sitting there like talking to me or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like trying to walk out. But like they're talking to me and they're also peeing at the same time. So at that point,
So wild.
I'm just like, can I see it? And they'd be like,
I
what?
mean, well, because it's also, I'm sure it's just like maybe you watch TV shows and da da da,
And that's
but
what would
you
happen.
don't, and you have like a situation
Yes.
like across the street or whatever, but you don't know. No one's telling you. First of all, no one's telling you like, how do I find out if this guy would also be interested in me or showing me like how do I know and how do I approach? Like you don't have any of those answers.
Exactly.
That's like, and that's where it's just it's sad and it sucks because it's just like some people just need a little bit more information,
Go a
to like
long way.
avoid these moments of shame
Yeah.
or just like the just it. I mean, the younger generation, they, they're talking, but there's also like weird dark shit going on with them too.
Yes.
Like it's always about that, and it's always like sex, and it's just like
Exactly.
we're so fucking obsessed
Yes.
that it's like there's no way to talk. So we start podcasts and see what can come of that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So you felt like super embarrassed, but did not deter you from further like explorations. Did you feel like it's like I gotta just, yeah, I guess like how much intentionality is like what you want and you're seeking. Are you sort of figuring this out, like how to get there in this sort of maybe secretive way,
Yeah, a lot of it. So initially it was like, oh, if like a guy is nice to me, like overtly nice to me. Because for me, it was like, for me, it always felt like I didn't have to say that I was queer, that I just like exuded the energy, especially in high school. It's just like, I may be, I'm not like the most macho person here. I literally am like president of the horticulture club. Like, like granted, I'm super
Yeah.
popular, like whatever, but like at the same time, I'm like everybody's little bro. Like I'm just this smart kid who came from like the smart school and just like came here and like it's super nice. And my older sibling had already gone there, so that was also a plus. I'm cute, and so it's just like clearly I'm queer, right? Like y'all can see this, right? And so it's like,
yeah, maybe we're not talking about it explicitly, but like we all know something.
And so when guys would be like super nice, because there were boys who were cool with me, but you can see that they would keep a clear distance. Like it would be like, oh, like what's
no
up,
confusion
bro?
here.
Yeah, like it would be like like
yeah, respect, but I'm gonna be over here.
Yeah. Even in gym class, it would be like, oh, like, yeah, bro, like some people be in locker room and would feel uncomfortable being in the locker room, like where I was at, and they would move somewhere else, whatever. Cool, like it's fine. And it wasn't just about me, obviously, but it's just like this idea, like I'm not with none of that,
right?
But then there were also those boys who were on the football team and like very, very homoerotic, and so I would get the homoeroticism sort of confused as well with like, well, if you're doing this, then you must like this. Because in middle school,
well, because it's very confusing.
It is, right? And so
because when you're doing quote unquote gay shit, it's like, well, what am I supposed to think?
I remember
that's
in middle
masculinity is fucking cuckoo crazy. It's all over.
Exactly. Like literally, I remember being in middle school and like the football players would like run in the hallway and pick me up and smack me on the butt and whatever else, and like put me down and be like, oh, like he like that shit. He gay. Like, and I was like, I would literally be like, I hated that entire experience. Please don't ever do that to me again. And they'd be like, oh, why are you so serious? I'm like, that literally was like the worst thing ever. Like, please just never do that again.
Yeah. So you're just, but
and I would be confused, like, how am I gay?
You did this thing to me. Yeah. It's so, I mean, and
at the same time in my brain, obviously, I'm like, but I am queer. Like, you can tell. Oh my God, I thought I was like disguising it.
Right. And also, who knows what all those boys' situations were,
Exactly.
Like.
So, this is where it became like, okay. I was a junior in high school, and this alum came to the school, and I was always like in and out of class. I basically ran my high school, and this alum came in, and I was in the front office, and I remember he walked in, he was buff, and I was just like, and like he saw me looking at him, but he didn't like do like he did like a. And I was like, oh, okay.
So this is different.
And so then the secretary was like, oh, like, do you mind like escorting, him to wherever? I was like, sure, that's fine. So now I have to walk in the hallway with this person. I'm talking to them, getting to know them. And he's like flashing his smile at me the whole time. Like, and it's a beautiful set of teeth, like skin amazing. I mean, just gorgeous man. And I was able to like escort him around for like 2 periods because I had nothing to do, obviously. And Um, then I had to go to class, but he stayed the entire day essentially. And so by the end of the day, he's in my last class randomly, and he talks to the teacher, and then we're all excused. But I was helping to write a grant with the teacher, so I was still inside of the computer lab. And so he comes back in, and he was like, because he had asked me for like a hug randomly earlier while we were walking, and I was just like, I don't know you, like, you know. And so he comes back in at the end of the day. He's like, "Can I have a hug now?" or whatever. And so like we're hugging. I'm like, "Woo," because this big.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just woo. And I'm 16 years old, so like this is so hot to me right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Can I have your number?" And I was like, "Oh." And me and him would like have a on again, off again situation for like a year and a half. It was so terrible. He was like 22, 23 years old.
I was gonna say like 22.
Yeah. And I'm like sneaking him in my mom's house every night at midnight. He's staying until like 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, and then like disappearing, and we're doing it over again like every night.
How is that feeling? Like, is it feeling escándalo? Is it feeling like okay, you know, is it feeling good? Is it feeling new? Like how is that feeling? Okay. How does it feel when it starts?
It felt amazing.
Yeah.
And we weren't even having sex, right? He was just coming. Well, like we weren't having penetrative sex. I didn't have penetrative sex until I was in college.
Yeah.
But he would come over, and we would just like cuddle and like talk and make out and like, you know, oral things. And it was just like perfect. I was like, I could do this forever. What? Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, is it like, oh yeah, this is what it can be like?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. You know? I mean, not the crawling through the window.
I'm
whatever,
like, obviously not crawling. Well, so thankfully, so I stayed on the main floor of my mom's house. So I stayed right by the front door. So
okay, good. We don't have to get into any parkour.
None of that. But you know, I was just like, oh, I can do this forever. Like, he swore he was in love with me. I felt like I was in love with him. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna graduate college and we're gonna run away together. Like, I mean, college actually. I was like, yeah, we're gonna run away together, and this is gonna be amazing. Like, this is my husband. Wow, thank you, God. I found him at 16.
Yeah. Work's done.
You know? Yeah. But at the same time, also, I was still getting a little frisky elsewhere. So, you know, but after it really became a conflict of, you're too old for me.
Yeah.
This isn't healthy. This isn't like, you're 23. You should not be with a 16-year-old.
At what point do you realize that?
I want to say like we may have started talking in the spring, and so it ended by like the fall.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So not like right away as things are.
Oh my God. I was 16. I was with the 23.
You're excited.
I was so excited.
Yeah. What do you think made you start to realize that?
My mom saw a hickey on my neck and asked me who it was from. And the fact that I had to lie about it, one, didn't sit well with me. And then even further, I was like, well, if I did tell her that it was a guy, she would ask me who. And she knew who, like she knew the alum of my school.
Yeah.
So she would have been like, what? You know, it just would have been a whole thing. Like, it would have turned into like, you know, that's like rape and and
perspective switch.
Just like a whole different thing. So I was just like, yeah, I think you're too old for me.
Do you think you recognized like power dynamics in that relationship?
No.
Or not until later?
He was very submissive. Like there was no like forcing me to do anything.
Yeah.
Like whatever I asked is what.
Yeah. That's the thing. I was even just talking about it.
That might be a power dynamic, right? Some type of manipulation.
Well, that's the thing. So I feel like I've talked about this on the show in the past. Like I have a lot of like age relationship-y stuff, you know, old soul girl, fake ID, da da
Yeah.
da,
Right.
you get
Right.
into situations. But I don't feel like particularly traumatized by all of them,
Mhm.
and like there are some that I can be like, that person didn't know. And this is the kind of relationship we had. And this was an experience that was had that I don't feel bad about, that I still look back on and I'm like, that was fine. That was fun. It was a wild time. Um, but the ones that I do now look back on that I'm like, yucky, actually
Yeah.
yucky, were mostly the ones where nothing physical even happened, but were the ones where it was like you knew how old I was, and
Mhm.
then like the way you're talking to me, like the fact that it was the when you're 18 type shit, but in the meantime I'm going to sexualize you a lot right now. you
Yeah.
know and like I also think like that it's always, and it's what I see in media now too, like I can recognize it in a show or a story or whatever. It's that thing of like the nice person who
Yes.
it's like, but I'm just lonely and I just want to cuddle and and that person that is like so into you and thinks you're so and when you're 18, when you're 18, those are the ones that are like the most fucking tricky, because it's like, yeah, you sort of trick me into feeling like this is safe because you're just nice guy, soft guy, lonely guy. We just talk because we're both sad little da da da. But meanwhile, you are actually like pulling me into this sort of toxic manipulative thing where it's like I am beholden to you in some way that that is not appropriate for me to be,
Right. Right.
it's
Exactly.
and that's not like anybody nice who has ever talked to me obviously, but like there are certain ones that you look back and you're like, okay, I think that's because now it's like, yeah, when I see it, I know it. I could smell it a mile away. Like, oh,
Yes.
he's doing the sad nice boy thing.
Yeah.
He's as to come off as so non-threatening. Like, how
Right.
threatening can I be? I'm just an old guy,
Right.
know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Not to say that that's what you were going through,
No, I mean,
but that's a way that I've looked back on some things.
as much as I adored the relationship at that age, like looking back on it, I'm like, that was not an
hmm
appropriate situation. And I think it kind of manipulated or warped like how I saw relationships moving forward. I always
Yeah.
wanted to be with older guys.
hmm
I always wanted to, and I wanted to be with older guys, and I got to college and sort of became an older guy, and like a junior, senior in college, and
yeah.
like having relations with like sophomores,
hmm
freshmen. And it was like, but they're in college, like they're grown, or
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
I admittedly, like it's really terrible, but like was 21 and like this senior in high school came to tour the school and like
Mm.
ended up sleeping with them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going on? You
Why
know?
do you think that? Do you think it's a? I don't know. Why do you think that
I
that is
think just after, well, I went
or
to an
was
all-male
was?
institution
hmm
so let's start there. And
Yeah.
when it comes to an all-male institution, and it's an HBCU. And so again,
hmm
speaking about like AMAB, like Black AMAB children, like
hmm
growing up and being repressed, like in a space like that, all of it just comes out. So it's like, oh, like this is just a clusterfuck of like
Yeah.
men who have issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
the
you
the
know,
the
I just think
path
after a
isn't as
while,
clear. Yeah.
exactly, right? And nobody's talking about it. It's just like everybody's doing these things in secrecy. Like, you know, there's still a lot of like homophobia on this campus and so on. It's just like
hmm
sneak and get your thing where you get your thing at, you know, and it's
Yeah.
nobody's business kind of thing. And so I think that I fell into that. Um, and then after a while, I will say after like just before graduating, I was just like, okay, I I've never really liked people that are my age,
hmm
because I feel like if it's my age. We're all like trying to discover the same thing. So there's nothing you
Mm,
can really teach me.
yeah,
And if it's
yeah.
people who are like younger than me, like maybe 3 years younger than me max, it's like I feel like I'm teaching you a lot of things, and I don't really like
Hmm.
that either. So
Hmm.
now I'm in a headspace of like I need someone who is like at least 3 years older than me, or 10
Yeah,
max possibly.
yeah.
Just to like really have somewhere to learn from. Like I feel like
Hmm.
I've spent a lot of my life like teaching other people, especially like in romantic relationship type things.
Hmm.
Um, that now I'm just like I want to be taught. Like I want to learn
Yeah.
things
Well, I
again.
think it's also like it's not only learning and teaching, it's like that also kind of equals out to like nourishment. Like who is
Yeah,
also like I can know the way that I am nourishing a relationship, and like I
right.
need like also nourishment back. And
Yes.
for the curious, like exploring minded people, that does translate into like learning a lot of the time. I think is
Yes.
like I want to become the best version of myself, and the best version of myself is someone who knows all these things and can do all these things and
Yes.
da da da. And it's like sick. I'm also that way. It's great, but it's also like it can be overwhelming, I think,
Yes.
because it's just
Yes.
like everything,
Right. Yeah.
um do you feel like your your type has is loosey goosey? Like, did it change? Did it so like with men it started with kind of like macho da 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 kind of?
I still love a man.
Yeah. What is it about a man?
I I still love a man, and it's just something about men. I just love men, like the shape of the body, the amount of
Mm-hmm.
time you spend in the gym working on it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, dick. Um, uh, just like abs, pectorals, like it's just so sexy. Like men are just
Yeah.
so sexy.
Yeah.
Don't get me
Do
wrong,
you
I love
like strength? Do you think it's like, does it translate into strength
it,
or?
it translates into that, like, can you
Mhm.
pick me up and just like
There's
toss me
something
around?
primal there.
Oh,
Yeah.
that kind of energy. But also, like, I love a petite frame as well. Like
Hmm.
a body that looks like mine
Hmm.
on another person, I'm like, oh my God, they look so hot. Like, so
Yeah.
it definitely
And that's
has
a form of self-love is
exactly.
is being like me over there.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And so yeah, like it has like shifted, but I think that even still for me, when it comes to like thinking about a partner, like a lifetime partner,
Hmm.
I love a man.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you
But
think
that has
there's like,
opened up to like not just cis men, right? Like this is
right.
like I love a man.
Yeah. And whatever that definition is to you
Exactly.
at the time.
Exactly.
What do you think? Were there any other like little like high school relationships or crushes, or what do you feel like is something that you've carried with you from those earlier experiences with like love and sexuality, or even not carried with you, learned from?
Well, high school was that was like my most, that was like top
Mm-hmm.
of the line. Like there were other people, but like Adrian was like,
Adrian.
you know,
So
I
what's
remember
Adrian's deal? Oh,
Adrian was
that was Adrian.
that
Oh
was
yeah, yeah.
Adrian.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
Adrian was just like that like
Did
that
anybody
one.
know about him?
My older sibling, and that's it. And I didn't tell
Mm,
them until like years later.
yeah. Do you think that was a part of it, like the
Yeah.
secrecy? Because at that point, you're used to the secrecy. You'd
Yeah.
say, yeah.
Yeah. I have
It's
been
just
used
like,
to it for like at least 4 years at that point.
how does it make you feel?
Um, I felt like I could never love out loud. I felt like there would never be an opportunity for me to have like a real partner,
Hmm.
like, and it be like actually respected. I
Yeah,
felt like, coming out, quote unquote, I would just be ridiculed for the rest of my life. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to be ostracized. I didn't want to be outcast.
yeah,
I wanted to be as normal as possible, and
yeah,
if that means that I have to hide who it is that I love and who I sleep with, or be hidden. I was like,
Mm.
okay, I guess that's just what my life has to come to. I had really accepted that as like my truth.
Well, it's all
And
you see at that moment.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that like would be the undertone and overtone of like the next at least 10 years.
Mm. I want to get to what changed that,
Or at least, I'm
but
sorry. Well, yeah.
yeah, I
Well, I'll say
mean,
like 8 years,
yeah.
give or take.
Before we get to how that shifts, I wanted to know, oh my God, did I just lose it? This keeps happening, and I think it's COVID brain fog. I had a like a good question. um, oh yeah. Would you like fantasize about what like a public partnership would be? Would you like think about would you even have that sort of hope of that like vision, or was this just what was normal?
Noah's Ark was my only reference.
Mm-hmm.
But even in Noah's Ark, like it was this queer man falling in love with this cis man who wasn't out of the closet.
Okay. So even there, it's
So
like
even there's
not a
like it's
full
still hidden. So I
fantasy.
never,
So you don't even let yourself go there.
I can't recall ever being like, oh, like every time I would envision there would be a woman there.
Mm,
I couldn't see her face.
yeah. You're
There
just
would
like,
be a woman.
well, I'm going to end up having to
Yeah.
like marry a
But there would
woman
be a
or
woman and
something.
there would be a dog.
Well, it's like the perfect little American family,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
dog and a kid on the way or
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
Well, no, and that's the thing. She was never pregnant.
Interesting.
It was just always a woman whose face I couldn't see.
Mm.
And
And
a
how would that
dog.
make you feel when you would have that vision? Did it
I would,
feel wrong?
well, no, I would just, did it feel wrong? It felt like it wasn't mine. Like it just felt like it wasn't
Mm.
my dream.
Mm.
Um, but I would like have it often, like as a kid. It would just be like, and I would wake up like, I wouldn't see myself in the dream either, like it would be
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so I think, well, now, like I feel like it leans more into like my trans identity than
Mm.
I recognized then. But like I've literally always been like feminine, and I've always
Yeah.
had conversations with my older sibling, like, oh, like if I was a girl, this, if I was a girl, this, if I was a girl, this. Um, and so
So
yeah,
it was a fantasy of a woman, but just not in the way you
yeah. And so
thought.
I've never had like dreams of marriages or proposals or anything like that. I've never planned a wedding.
Hmm. Yeah.
I wouldn't, none of that.
But
Mm-mm.
sometimes you would just see this woman and a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. That's so wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I'm doing a lot of like reading, and by that I mean audio booking. Yes, the Twitter book, The Body Keeps the Score. Yes,
Yeah.
I my therapist did recommend it to me. I said, "What, the book from Twitter?" And I was like, "I don't even know if we like this book or not." And then I'm just like, I shouldn't go to Twitter to know if anything is good or bad ever, because it's a fucking toxic, terrible place. And the reason I still have it is because I'm putting out this podcast again. Anyways, I am listening to the book. It's pretty intense, but it has like, I mean, I love it. I love learning about shit, and your brain is just so crazy. Your brain is so crazy. And it's fascinating, and just like the things that it does, and the really just like how you are limited by your language in so many ways. And sometimes it's just an image and you don't have the words to figure out what it means until however many fucking years later,
Right. Exactly.
It's crazy. That's fascinating. So at some point, that shifts. So 8 years later, things shift. And what is it about? What ignites the shift, do you think, into who you are now, or who you're becoming and being?
I think I just got tired. I fell in love with somebody in college. I broke up with them We were 18, both of us. It was the first time I was like with somebody who was my age.
Mm-hmm.
And
What was it about them?
hey, I mean, just like the first night we met, it was like I'd known them forever. Like I have never said that about anybody ever.
Yeah.
But like them, I remember them walking into the suite where we were at, and like I just looked at them and was like, and just like kind of turned my head, but like, was checking
Yeah.
it out. And we were sitting there just like talking, and they had said something that I didn't agree with. And so I was like, no, like that's wrong. Da, da, da. And they were like, well, no, da, da, da. Like, and I was like,
Perfect.
oh,
Yeah.
and I was like, but you can't beat me though,
Yeah.
And so it's like, what? And so we started to like wrestle, and it was like very like,
Mm.
but we were in the room with my best friend at the time and their partner, and the guy was like their partner's best friend. And
Mm.
so, my best friend's partner is like, oh, like y'all flirting and whatever else. And so me and the guy, Malik, that's his name. Me and
Mm.
Malik were just like, no. And then
But
later on,
also,
but also, and then so later we
mm.
were all getting in the car. We were just like driving around Atlanta, and Malik and I were sitting in the back seat, like just talking. And then we started holding hands, and then like he leans in and like looks at me, and I'm like looking at him, and I'm like, boy, stop looking at me like that. And next thing you know, like he didn't move. He just like kept staring at me. And I'm just like, what? And he's just like, he like grabs my face and pulls it in, and we just started making out in the back seat. And this is the first night that we met. And I was
Oh
just
my
like,
God.
what
Were they
the?
also still in the car, or it was just you two?
They were literally in the car driving.
Oh my God. Fantasy. Then it's real and you are out loud.
Right?
Was that the
Exactly.
first time that had ever,
The very
yeah.
first time that had ever
That's wild. And
happened.
in the back of the back of the car is so hot. I love the back of a car. Like some of my favorite memories. I mean, I miss having a car and that's one of the
Exactly,
reasons,
exactly. Because
Yeah.
I have a lot of backseat stories. I really do.
Yeah.
You know,
It's an electric space.
it really.
There's
And
something
so,
about it. You're like, ugh, cramp. It's good.
literally. And so
Yeah.
and so his best friend's driving and like is looking in the mirror. And after we get done, because they didn't say anything the entire time, but even if they did, we wouldn't have heard them. Like we were just
Mhm.
so like
In the
locked in.
zone.
And after it's like over, we just like are smiling at each other. And his best friend is like, well, damn, y'all could have asked us to pull over or something. And we were just like, oh.
Well, that's that must have felt good for that to not be like an awkward situation.
It was so perfect. And so
Yeah.
I literally like every day after class, he was coming to pick me up. We were talking every day. We literally would like,
Cute.
we would do like dates to go to watch American Horror Story. This is when Conan was on
Yeah.
TV. And it was just, and then one day
A
he was
beautiful
like,
time for gay rights.
yeah, right.
American Horror Story.
And he was just like, one day he was just like, like I want to be with you. I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, like I'm really into you. Like I want to be with you. And I was like, I mean, I want to be with you too. I was like, but I'm not out of the closet, da da da. And he's like, I don't care about any of that. Like I want to be with you. And I was like, okay, just like, are you sure? Like because like I don't want to like tell you yes and then like I get uncomfortable if like da da da. He's like, I don't care. Like we could take it as slow as you need us to. Da, da, da. And I was like, okay, perfect. And then the next day, I had went home with all this anxiety, like, oh my God, I have a boyfriend.
Well, just what is keeping you like in the closet at this point, do you think?
My family.
Your family.
Yeah. And that was the thing about like having that mentality of like, when I turn 18, I'm going to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
I had locked myself.
18.
Right.
Yeah.
I had locked myself in that box for so long and had been such a secret for so long, quote unquote secret, for so long that I was just like, I'm safe here. Nobody knows. I don't have to explain anything. Nobody will ask me questions. Like, it's fine. I'm normal. I was well known on camp. I poured myself into clubs and my education for that reason of like, I'm queer, so I have to be like top of the
All of
top of the
these
top of the
things.
top, you
Yeah.
know? And so I was well known on my college's campus as well. So it was like, there's no way I'm about to like pop up with a boyfriend. I just started going to school here. No,
Yeah. I'm not going to
not
blow
happening.
this reputation.
It's not happening.
And when you first like saw Malik, do you think it was like an electric sort of like chemistry, or was it like a recognition like, oh, might be like me?
No, I knew Malik. I knew Malik
You
was,
already knew.
well, it wasn't like
Oh.
my best friend at the time was queer. We would like be
Mm-hmm.
queer together, right?
Right,
Like
right.
in our own little, like, so in college, there I was expressing myself, but the world didn't. I wasn't letting the
Right. It
world in
wasn't
on it.
like
Yeah.
official.
There was no flag. I wasn't,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yes, girl. It wasn't given, no.
Yeah.
It was very much like, yes. But like me and my best friend, we would walk around campus and we would be the hot boys and we'd be like, oh, you see him? Like, yeah, he's hot. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
Like there was that, but there was never a like,
A whole
thing.
a whole, yeah,
I didn't come out
orientation.
until I was
A whole
22.
orientation on your
Exactly.
orientation.
Exactly. Like I didn't
Yeah.
come out until I was 22 years old, like to my mom, right?
Yeah.
But when I was 18, I told my older sibling and I told my best friends back home.
Okay.
Well, I told them, but then when I was like 17, my friend group that I was friends with ended up like trying to out me. It was very, very violent.
Yeah.
And so that made me also like stay locked in the box. I was like, people are trying to like,
who can you trust?
who can I trust? You know?
Yeah.
But when I saw Malik, I already knew Malik was queer. But I didn't think that Malik would be attracted to me.
Interesting, because you've been so you know, like traipsing around town a little bit. Yeah.
You know, so like locked in to this thing. I just didn't think that I was like, I didn't think I was hot shit anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, because it was,
I had been a secret for everybody.
Yeah.
You know? So it's
and
like,
you're like, I can't bring that
thing.
power into the forefront.
Exactly.
You know?
It was also that it was like, I'm everybody's secret. So like, I must be, I'm like, because if I was hot and like messing with these guys on the under, they would be like, you know what? It is what it is. This motherfucker's hot.
Because that's the thing, like, even beyond like the you know, like orientation, like fear or, you know, shame around that, like it just innately feels bad to be someone's secret. Like on a human level, like I feel like I've been someone's like passive secret before, and it was honestly like a huge thing when I started hanging out with X, which was like when we were at the park, like that I'd be like, and even Austin like outed us on the first episode where he said like, oh yeah, I'd like look over and, you know, he'd be like touching your leg, or you'd be like, but that was honestly huge for me. Like any like little physical you know, interaction, affirmation that was happening in like he kissed me for the first time like in front of people, and I was like, whoa, like that was huge for me, and it felt like insane because I'd been such a little secret before, even just like even not in like a, you know, even in a passive way, but when you act different with me around other people than in close quarters, like, what am I doing wrong? Am I fucking gross? Like, so you think I'm gross, you think I'm trash, and you don't want anyone to know that we've like touched stuff. You know, it feels like shit. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like, I get it in that level, you know,
but that's exactly what I mean. Right.
Yeah.
Even still.
Especially if you're like, but I know I'm a prize.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, maybe this is like some gay shit, quote unquote, but like, I'm hot. So
if you're going to be gay with anyone, you should be gay with me, because
like,
bone structure. Yeah. So do you feel that was a similar thing?
It was so scary when Malik was like, I want to be with you. Like you are, I want us to be a thing. It was scary. It was like, is he sure? Because like, I don't think that I'm that like, I don't know if I'm that bitch. Like, I don't know.
Well, because you hear it enough times in the ways that people are not affirming you outwardly that you're like, well, maybe
Well,
it's
everybody's
true.
affirmation to me was like, you're so smart, you're so
Mm-hmm.
well connected,
Mm-hmm.
you're charismatic, you have a great personality, but nothing was ever like, you're so sexy, you're so
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah. I
Like,
used to
and it was
always
it
think
was always
like,
like, you're so cute.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I used to always think like, if you thought I was cool, funny, interesting, you're not attracted to me and you want to be friends with me.
Yep.
And if you think I'm attractive, you only want to have sex with me and you don't want a relationship with me. You don't want to
Yep.
get to know me. And it felt like that for a long time because it kind of was like that for a long time, you know?
I
And
mean,
yeah,
we're
that
literally
feels
like,
like shit where it's like, why can't I just be one whole
yeah,
thing, you
we're literally
know?
like, we're the same generation. So like,
Yeah.
we get
It's
it.
it's a thing. People can be everything and you can
Yeah,
love them for all of it.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it just yeah, college was like that too. Like there were people who were attracted to me, but my personality was so big for
Mm-hmm.
them, or like I
Mm-hmm.
did too much on campus for them to like want to be with me publicly. But
Yeah.
everybody wanted to be in my bed, or
Yeah.
everybody had talked about whoever had been in my bed and like da da da. And it was
Yeah.
just so crazy to me. Like, but
Did you
there were
feel like sexualized, fetishized in
so much.
yeah.
It felt like I had no real friends. It felt like if people didn't want to like use me for my
Get
connections on
something.
campus, they
Yep.
wanted to
Yeah.
use me because they heard that like I was good in bed. And it was just
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah. And
that's
that is a thing that like sometimes I've felt that way too. Like even in high school, I was doing music journalism and I'm like, wow, lots of people want to be my friend now that I can write about a band and like give them some press or get free tickets, something, to a concert. And there
exactly.
is a thing of like, sometimes I'll be like, I don't want to just exist with my partner. I want to like live life with my partner. But then I also, on the other side, I'm like, sometimes just existing with my partner is like so wonderful because he's not like trying to get shit from me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like just being. And that's like, it's like, okay, well, if you strip me of all of these things, how am I still valuable to you?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's so much. This is so good. But so you're scared of the Malik proposition, but you're like, yes,
I told him
or
yes. I literally was
yeah.
like, okay. And it was so blissful. We like cuddled and watched American Horror Story and made out, and that was great. And then he took me back to campus, and I was like, oh my God, I have a boyfriend. But like when I got back to my room and I was like, oh my God, I have a boyfriend. It's so blissful.
Mm-hmm,
That anxiety came in and was like, oh my God, I have a boyfriend. Wait, I
mm-hmm,
can't have a boyfriend. Oh no. Like, then I got to tell my mom about him. Like, oh shit. Then I got,
yeah.
oh, then campus is gonna find out. What if people find out that I'm, oh my God. And that whole thing started happening. And I literally like saw him the next day
Mm,
and was like, I think we should break up. Like, I really don't think that I could do this.
yeah. You
And he was like,
spiraled.
why? He was like, why? Like, what happened? And I just told him. And he was like, that's just like your brain talking. Like, we literally can take it slow. Like, I just want to be
Mm-hmm.
with you.
That's so nice.
And I broke up with him 2 times after that, like in the same week. And
Yeah.
literally, he was just like, okay, like, you got to figure yourself out.
Yeah.
And then when I finally figured it out a month later, and I was like, I want to be with you. Like, I know that I do. He was like, I'm in a relationship.
Oh no. Oh, it's not how I wanted it to go.
I have
But
not been the
that's
same.
how it
I
goes.
have not been the same since.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so hard.
To this very second, I've been in another relationship with a person that I really care about, and we got together when I was 23.
Mm-hmm.
But like Malik fucked me up for the rest of my college experience. And it was nothing that
Yeah.
he did, but it was everything that I did. And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm never gonna find somebody who loves me like that.
How are you what's the feeling when like in this like when you say like he fucked you up for the rest of the like what is that feeling? What is that hurt? Is it hurt? Is it anger? Is it self-directed?
I
Um
was so I felt so stupid.
mhm. Yeah.
because I knew that I loved him.
Yeah.
I had never felt like that about like even like I still get that feeling like when I talk
Mm-hmm.
about him. And I spent the next 4.5 years like trying to rekindle something with him.
Mm.
And granted, like anytime we would see each other, we would both feel that energy, like
Yeah.
to the point where like I saw him maybe my sophomore or junior year. Because he had gone overseas um to Korea for like
Mm-hmm.
2 years. And then he was like, oh, like I'm back in Atlanta. And so we connected and just like got some food or whatever. And like the whole time I'm sitting there with him, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so in love with him.
Mm-hmm. Does he
And
know? Do you think he knows
I
in
told him,
those? Yeah.
I literally like can't stop thinking about you. Like you still like make my, and he was like,
What
no,
is it about him?
I think just like having that first interaction, it
Mm-hmm.
being so just like natural. And then like the rest of the time we was
Safe.
together was so natural. And then like this man was like, I want you like exactly how you are, like, and
Mm-hmm.
grow with you and just like be with you. Like I just love who you are. It was just like I had never
Yeah.
like
Do
the
you feel like it was like
again,
an
it
overwhelming sort
felt
of acceptance?
well, it felt like I felt with Adrian, but this time it was coming from somebody that I felt I could actually be with.
Yeah, without the like toxicity of that.
Exactly. And so I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna. It felt like Noah and Wade. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
well, except like the straight part. It was like
Right.
he's out, I'm not, but like it's fine.
It was the other way around.
It was like it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Like because like I know that it's not that like I'm trying to be straight as it is. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't like found that courage yet.
So do
But
you think that you have like regret around that? Like that you should have just gone for it?
I
Or do
really
you
hate
know
the
that you
word.
needed that time?
I think that everything happens for a reason, and I absolutely need that time because I would have
Yeah,
destroyed that relationship.
for sure. Yeah.
I would have destroyed it because I would not have believed that I deserved it.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that he could have
You think you would
said,
have
showed, or
self-sabotaged
gave to
it?
me. I would have self-sabotaged. Like I've self-sabotaged just about every relationship that I've been in.
Yeah. I'm trying to be so aware
Yeah.
of my habits, because they can be so small and they can be really towards myself, and I won't realize until later, like, oh, wait, here are all of the ways that they're impacting, like, this relationship,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very hard because it can be little things, but
Yeah.
they chip.
Exactly.
I think that these are one of the not worst. I'm not gonna say these are some of the most like frustrating stories for me. I think, and I think because I think it's just like so much has to do with timing, and that is like one of the hardest things to sort of reconcile with because what can you do about it? That being said, and I'm not going to like go out here and set expectations or whatever, but I have had multiple episodes of this podcast where I've interviewed people about like, oh yeah, I had a huge crush on them in high school, or I had a huge crush on them in college, never happened. And then it's like 10 years later, they're married. Like crazy shit does happen, and there is a sort of thing of like entering and fading from people's lives at certain
Yeah. Oh,
moments,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
it's like you needed that person then for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I think, yeah, who knows what could have happened if you entered that like so early, and then that could have squandered like any, like I think about this sometimes too, where there are people in my life that like, I had like these big feelings for and whatever, that I'm just like, I don't feel that way anymore. I don't need that anymore. But
Yeah.
like, there are certain people that's just like, you're a very special person to me. You're
Yeah.
the only person I know that's like you. And I don't want you to ever not be in my life in some way,
Yeah.
and you could have tarnished that opportunity altogether by
Exactly.
entering too early.
Exactly. And so I just recently talked to Malik like maybe a month ago, like
Oh,
for the
wow.
first time in like
Oh,
3 years, 3 or 4 years.
yeah.
And because they were in New York, it was, and but I can sense that a lot of who they used to be is still a
Mm,
lot of who they are now.
mm,
And I think that I have like, granted, like my emotions when I think about these people, I'm able to say their names and things like that is because of the impact that they had on my life, right?
yeah.
Not because like, oh, I want to walk down the aisle with them tomorrow because I don't know who the hell they are now, and they don't know who the
Yeah.
hell I am now.
Yeah.
But I, still appreciate. For me, it's always about the person, the people who are like, I'm taking you as your full self.
That's what you're looking for,
That's what I'm
really.
looking for.
Yeah.
My girlfriend in college, literally, I remember laying in the bed with her, and she turned over to me and was just like, "Do you like guys?" And I was like, "What?"
Mm,
And she was like, "No, like it's fine. Like I I wouldn't
yeah.
care if you do." And I was like, "But why are you asking me this?" She's like, "I mean, I like girls, but like,"
Mm,
and I was like, "I mean, yeah, like I guess I can consider myself bisexual." It's the first time I ever said it.
yeah. And that's
Like
in high school.
this is in college.
I mean, in college. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like 21 at
How
that
did that
point.
feel to say
I
out
was just
loud?
like, "Oh."
She got out of me. Yeah.
And she was like, "Okay."
And that felt good.
And I was like, "That's it?" And she was like, "Yeah." I had never had that experience before in my life because
Yeah.
everybody told me like, "Oh, girls don't
You
like,
can't be that. Yeah.
like you can't do, and so to be like validated,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay.
Yeah. It's
So I
so,
can't possibly even have a wife.
mm-hmm.
Now a wife is a possibility, or a cis woman rather is a
Yeah.
possibility.
All of these people are sort of opening different little windows and doors of like
Exactly.
possibility.
Everyone is saying it's okay to be who you are
Mm-hmm.
and I'll still love you.
Yeah.
The person that I want that to come to from the most was my mother.
Yeah.
And that never happened.
Yeah.
And that's why it was still hard for me to accept everybody else's acceptance and then further accept my own. Because the person who I cared about it coming from the most had not
Mm-hmm.
said that this thing was okay. This is who raised me. This is who I
Yeah.
don't want to embarrass, right?
Yeah.
If it's going to embarrass her, I'm not going to do it. That was my mindset for 25 years.
Yeah. It's so like, I mean, that's that thing of like these early, like, it's what you learn, and you don't even know you're learning it of like, here's what I have to be, here's what I need, and here's who I need to get it from.
Yep.
And if something doesn't, work there along the way, um, it can really steer all of your decisions or all of your instincts and your moves, and it's so wild though, because it's like you try not to be defined by those things,
Yeah.
like I am not defined by a need for validation.
Mm-hmm.
But it does propel you into sort of like, well, I guess now it's like, what is validation, right? And like, what is authentic validation, and what does that feel like, and what does that require?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like today, what would make you feel authentically seen?
I think I've given myself permission to do whatever I feel like doing.
Mm-hmm.
Show up however I feel like showing up and being however I feel like being. Um when I was in Denver recently, I was just there like existing. And at first I was like putting on this like shell of protection of like, oh, like people see me as masculine, so I have to present that way. And then I was like, no, I don't. If I feel like wearing my clothing, how I wear my
Mm-hmm.
clothing. If I feel like being the femme, the non-binary femme, the gender fluid femme that I am, the trans femme that I am, then I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who has a problem with it has a problem with themselves because it ain't got nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not my problem that you don't like the fact that I have on clothes that I paid for with my money.
Yeah, that's a really freeing way to get there,
You know,
of like, what's my problem? It's not my problem,
it's
your
not.
thing.
It's quite not. Like
Yeah.
I'm walking down the street going to the destination that I'm going to, and you have the audacity to call me something crazy.
Hmm.
I don't know you.
Yeah.
I've never experienced you. You've never experienced me. You don't know what kind of person I am. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I'm going through. But you
Hmm.
have the audacity to try to pass judgment on me. You have some issue that you're dealing with that has nothing to do with me. And so I'm going to keep going about my day.
Yeah.
That confidence has like because remember, that was the kind of kid that I was.
Yeah. Right. It's circling back.
Exactly.
And I think that's huge. I feel like I've been in that space, and I feel like people in general right
Yeah.
now are in this space of like rediscovery of like, wait, I had something there, and I
Yep.
actually, like it's sort of like this special early thing that it's like, well, imagine if it could be in my wiser hands now, like this
Exactly.
special energy. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's so great. I think but it's deceptively painful. I mean,
It
at least
is.
for me,
When you
yeah.
look, well, when you look back over your life, you're like, fuck, I could have been living like this for all those years too.
Yeah, right?
But then it's like, but if you would have been living like that all those years, you would have missed out on so many lessons.
Hmm.
What
And
you said
also
earlier,
that
right?
camp,
The
yeah,
hardships of like where you're going, you wouldn't have had those finite experiences to like
right.
help you get back to, oh, okay, well, I've been through all that shit. I can now go to this level and it'd be fine.
Yeah. And it's even just like the clarity of knowing, okay, I don't want to continue doing that. I want to, the
Exactly.
rest of my life can be this way,
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
like a big thing to have to decide of like, okay, it's like might be hard and it might be painful, but ultimately the rest of my life is going to be a lot better if I
Right.
like do this shit now and get back there.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think that so do you think you seek validation anymore, like from a maternal standpoint?
No, my mom, we recently broke up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more so just like, I'm my own mother.
Yeah.
And, I think I would like, I think naturally, like, to feel void of like a maternal figure is like something real and something that I still enjoy and like would like to have. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, like I am perfectly fine um just like mothering my own self.
Right. Well, because it's also just like how we choose to define our world,
Yeah,
and like the people in our lives and what they mean to us.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such, you know, this was reiterated a lot at the old park, and I think it's a very simple thing that I'm trying to apply to different parts of my life, which is just the idea of working smarter, not harder,
Mhm.
and like being honest with yourself of like, this is what I need, and here's like, how am I gonna get it? Like, maybe
Exactly.
it's not gonna be in the way that like this person thinks I should or shouldn't, or society has told me I should or shouldn't. But if it gets me where I need to be and I'm feeling like good and safe and like myself, like no one can tell you what your relationships need to be, you
Exactly.
know? And that's like it's hard, but I think that's like also very brave, like honorable work to be like that's like, you know, serving yourself. It's hard to do that. It's really
Yeah,
hard to do that, especially if it's not like what we're told to do,
exactly.
you
That
know?
goes back to your earlier point of like, I turn 26 tomorrow.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Look at
So it's
that.
like, fuck. What was I gonna say?
We're turning 26 tomorrow.
You said, oh, right. I
Oh,
turn 26 tomorrow. So it's like, I'm still young,
so young. Yeah.
right? Like I still have so much life ahead of me, but
Right.
it feels like I've been in a rat race this entire time.
Well,
But now
because
I'm
you
like,
have, like, it's been cuckoo.
pull
Life is
yourself out of
crazy.
there,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
was just talking to our mutual friend the other day
Mhm.
about how sometimes I'll think about like wow, I've actually lived a lot of fucking life, you
Yeah.
know? And I've had a lot of eras. I've had a lot of like moments in time. And it's like, well,
Every
if
year,
I've had all of that as like a child, like imagine how much
every
life I
year,
have.
every year has
Mhm.
been a new era. Every
Yeah.
year. And I noticed it especially in college. Like I remember going to school every year and I looked like a completely different person every year. And like
Yeah.
my best friend, actually who's still my best friend, would comment on it and would be like, bitch, every year you come back to school, you've leveled up. Like you giving different energy. And I'm
Like a
just like,
Pokemon.
he's like, you just evolve. So like my identity has become evolution.
Yeah.
Like people have literally said, like, you evolve so rapidly. And
Mhm.
so for me, I'm just like, huh? Do I? I feel like I'm
That's
more,
just your natural way.
yeah. But then I'm like, you know what? When I think back over the year, I'm like, okay, this was that era. Ooh, but but I
Yeah.
think more recently, especially during this pandemic, it's been like I'm seeing eras being repeated
Mm.
and being
Mm.
like, okay, this kind of reflects 2017 or this kind of reflects, and so it's
Yeah.
like, okay, now because I'm doing that work, that shadow work, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
A little plug.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, cool. I'm seeing the reflection, but it's also teaching me like you've seen this time and again, even in your
Mm.
childhood.
Mhm.
But now it's in, like you said, my wiser hands. And
Yeah.
so now I'm able to actually like massage it and like
This
manipulate
reminds
it
me
how it's
so
supposed
much
to.
of like so have you heard of The Artist's Way? I was doing this book, The Artist's Way,
Yes.
and there is a thing that's been very useful to me, like where it talks about like creative U-turns, like
Mhm.
U-turns in your life where it's like you need to look back on certain things and mourn certain things,
Yes.
but also reconsider some things. Like
Yeah.
maybe I dismissed this prematurely, and maybe this thing has new life in
Yes.
the person that I am today. And like, not to be corny, but like literally why this podcast is back, honestly, because I looked back at stuff and I was like, I'm not happy where I'm at right now. Da da da. You know what? I always thought the podcast was good. And
Yeah.
it didn't deserve it's been off for 2 years and it didn't get the shot it deserved. And I think it has more story and life
Right.
left. And I'm so fucking glad because now I'm here doing this with you. And this has
And
been the
good for you,
best.
because like who's to tell you no other than you? Like
Right.
we've allowed people in society to tell us no, and it's like they only saying no because they are afraid to do their whatever their thing is. That has
Yeah.
nothing to do with you. It literally has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
much has nothing to do with us.
so
And it's
much.
crazy. And it's both terrifying and so freeing,
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
take that information and roll with it how you gotta.
Exactly.
Ash, we've been talking for so long, but this
Yeah.
has been so great. We can absolutely wrap it up. Any like remaining thoughts you have on all of this stuff? Or we could just go to plugs. I don't know.
I think I think the most important thing is like we belong to ourselves before we belong to anybody. And if your relationship with yourself is not
Mm.
rooted in something that's true and authentic and genuine, like whoever you're
Mm.
gonna be with, it's not gonna be rooted in
And
something
loving.
and
And
loving,
loving.
right?
Yeah.
And it's not gonna be that, right? So just reflect to yourself, like look in the mirror and like pour into yourself, affirm yourself. Like that is the most important thing that I have had to like reteach myself. Cause I remember
Mm.
being young and like being in the mirror and being like, you're a hot shit. Like you are fine as fuck. Like, and like
Yeah.
actually meaning it, because I would forget, like I wouldn't look in the mirror like at myself and I look and I'd be like, wait a
Is that
second,
me?
you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that like remembering self and like remembering, as in like putting back together like yourself is so important. And affirming yourself, like knowing that you are the best thing that has ever happened to you, and you will be the best thing that has ever happened to you always.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's great. I mean, and I think it was one of the first things that I really noticed about you and that I admired about you was the way that you were so secure and almost unbothered, where it's like you could have a disagreement with someone, you know, and not let it like take over your soul and just be and be like, we can agree to disagree in a genuine way. And like a lot of people say that and they do not mean it, you know? And I was like, well, that's like radical love. Like that's radical love of self and of like understanding. And that is like, that's how I want to move. That's so graceful, you know? And I'm so glad that I know you, and I'm so glad that we got to do this, and that
this is great.
more people are going to know you now,
yes.
and I'm sure feel like they identify with a lot of what you said. I think, and even if not, there's always something to learn and know.
Exactly.
And on that note, let's plug some stuff. What do you want to plug today?
We're going to plug 9 Media Source, which is my production agency. If you're looking for video edits, if you're looking for music that's amazing, if you're looking for a beautiful face to like collaborate with and to book, then here I am. You can find me there. We're going to plug For the Girls, which is a Black trans party collective, but they do so much more than that. They are raising funds for like rent relief for Black trans femmes and Black trans people, for gender affirming surgeries, travel needs, and so on and so on. We're gonna plug Abolition Park for obvious reasons.
Yes. That's also my plug.
You know, and follow me on Instagram at Ashwagandha. That's OSHWAGHANDA.
Spelling, and we'll link all of it if that.
We'll link everything, and if I spelled it wrong, well.
This has been the best. I simply adore you, and I can't wait to put this out. And thanks for listening, everybody. Follow Ash and contribute to all of those things. They're all good. Until next time. Bye bye.